But here's now some cultural context to explain why I think these universities are dangerously naive. Now, I should say that I used to be of the left. I twice worked for the Labor Party. I worked for the Age newspaper, Australia's most left-wing newspaper. But now I urge others of the left to wake up to two very threatening things now being pushed by their side of politics: the new racism and the new tribalism. And I'll give you just the latest example learned today. Maher Mughrabi is the features editor of The Age, an influential position on an influential newspaper, and he identifies as Palestinian, even though his mother is English. More than that, Mughrabi buys right into radical Palestinian politics, the politics of victimhood and of hostility to Israel. For instance, he this year signed a petition demanding journalists not be neutral when covering the latest conflict between Israel and the Palestinian terrorist group Hamas. He said that journalists should avoid the both-siderism that equates the alleged victims of military occupation with its instigators. And now he is berating colleagues at The Age who criticised the campaign to boycott Israel. He said to them in emails that the suggestion that it was anti-Semitic was offensive. But it gets worse. Mughrabi then played the race card against his colleagues, as is the modern way, saying the Israel-Palestinian issue is not an in-house matter for white people. By the way, I should point out to him that most Jews are white. They don't have a right to an opinion about an issue involving their own country. And I don't have an opinion because of the shameful colour of my skin. How often this race card gets played these days, right? But I do have to ask how this game actually works. What are the rules? Can I now say, take Australian history, that Australian history is now not an in-house matter for any Arab journalist like Mughrabi to discuss? Well, of course I can't. That would be racist as his statement that whites can't discuss the Israel-Palestinian conflict. But it gets still worse. Remember, we are talking here about a senior editor of one of Australia's most influential newspapers, someone helping to shape its coverage in Australia's most left-wing state. The Palestinian Community Association of Victoria last year announced that this same Maher Mughrabi was a judge of its literary prize named after Ghassan Kanafani, who was a journalist and influential editor for a Marxist terrorist group, the Palestinian Front for the Liberation of Palestine, notorious for hijacking aeroplanes, among other things, until Israel assassinated him. But Mughrabi, I should point out, by the way, that this Kanafani did not himself shoot anyone that anyone knows of. He was just an apologist for this terrorist group. But Mughrabi, this features editor of the Melbourne Age newspaper, last year urged young Palestinian Australians to write something for a prize in this man's name, a prize in honour of a member of a terrorist group, and to write something stressing their Palestinian identity above all.
The way you fit in or don't fit in at home, at school, in the street, all of these things can tell us something about being Palestinian.
This new identity politics in this country is mad, it is divisive, it is dangerous. And when we have this identity politics preached by influential journalists in influential news organisations and in universities as well, the idea that some foreign-born academics might not choose their old country over this one looks now even crazier.